our guest, and let's get down to Bippity Boppity Business. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bippity Boppity Business, where we dive into the magical world of Disney enthusiasts who are also leaders in their industry. Today, we have a super inspiring guest. I'm so excited to have her with us today. Today, we have Bridget Murphy, and Bridget is the founder and CEO of Envision Promotions, a company that helps Fortune 500 brands like Coca-Cola, Nickelodeon, Nick, don't copyright me, and Frito-Lay achieve remarkable growth and increase their brand value through strategic marketing partnerships. Bridget and her team essentially act as matchmakers for the biggest brands in business, and they use data-driven strategies and AI to connect brands with their ideal audiences. Now, of course, Bridget will explain it much better than I can, but there's different things that they do, and they have innovative programs to boost reach and revenue through promotions, licensed partnerships, sweepstakes, if I could say that 3 times straight, retail promotions, programs, and a whole lot more magical things that they use to make the money happen. So, other than that, though, she's a recognized leader in all sorts of things, but definitely in partnerships and marketing. Bridget today, she's going to share some insights from her career and from her journey into business. And I'm just so excited to, dive into that and just really give us the magic behind what these successful partnerships look like. So everyone, let's give a warm welcome to Bridget Murphy.
Hi,
Yay!
Rita. It's so nice to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so excited. So, basically, for everyone who doesn't know, let's go back in time, a la Disney. Let's go into the origin story here. Can you share a little bit about your early career days, particularly from what I've seen on your LinkedIn, the time where you were a senior sales manager at Disney, and like, you love Disney, you worked there for a little bit. What experiences shaped your approach there to what you're doing today, and how'd you get there?
Oh, thanks so much for having me on your program. I am so excited to chat with you today about this. Um, I would say when it comes stepping back towards Disney, I think really the magic was just finding my tribe. Working at Disney was such a positive experience for me. I grew so much as not just a salesperson, but just learning how to learn. They were constantly challenging me. They were pushing you to grow. They were pushing you to get outside your comfort zone. And I had the opportunity to work with some of the biggest brands in the business when I was at Disney and put together these amazing, comprehensive partnerships where both partners would grow and win. And I think that was really the beginning of the development of Envision Promotions. But yeah, it's funny looking back at Disney, I'm still tight friends with former bosses. Some of my best friends came from Disney. And it's so funny. I mean, I even have like my wands for my friends at Disney. But yeah, a fantastic experience and just such a great learning experience. So I think, if I'm talking to my younger self, I would highly encourage finding your tribe and finding
Mm.
places that really encourage you to grow and be your best self.
That's amazing. I think from what I've heard of a lot of people who have worked for Disney in the past, there is this sense of camaraderie that that can happen, especially with a brand that has that and developed into their core, right? It's like you it's this feeling of, yeah, like you think and act this way, I think and act this way, and there's a few similar traits that I noticed that the tribe or people that have worked there and are doing other things now have. And I really think that one of them is being really relationship focused, relationship driven. I don't think you could go to a Disney park and feel that you just had a passive experience if you had the right one, right? You feel that that's a
Exactly.
core value there too,
Mhm.
and also the creativity as well too. But I think that some of those pieces and more that you've learned there are awesome. But how did you go from working there and inspiring, and what inspired you to start Envision Promotions, and kind of your vision for the company when you first founded it?
Well, that's such a funny story. I am not sure. Um, I had like a very specific vision. I went from working for some of the biggest brands, entertainment brands in New York City, and meeting the hottest guy in Manhattan who got a job in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio. And I just didn't fit when I moved back.
Yeah.
And then very soon after we were back, I became pregnant with my daughter, and
Mm.
calling all of my friends from Manhattan saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. Several of them encouraged me to break out on my own. And so the real magic of starting Envision came from the belief in my core, friend base, encouraging me to not be afraid and to start my own. And I thought, why not? I can give it a try. I can do what's really important to me, which I love working. I love, putting these partnerships together, really solving problems. But I also wanted to be a mom. And,
Mm.
years ago when I started Envision, corporations were not as flexible, I don't think, as they are now. And there was that fear of not being able to do both. And so starting Envision, I guess my vision for starting Envision was really my pregnancy of my daughter, Maggie.
That's so beautiful. I think
Yeah.
it's brave too, because it's like you're birthing 2 things at once at that time, right? Like, having a business, it's not like having a child, but it does really feel, there's, like, some moments where you're like, "Whoa, what am I doing? And who's the adult here? And how did I start this?" Like, in those
Oh, that is
moments.
so funny. Rita, I actually had a conversation recently where I said, I think of Envision as my third child. I
Oh,
really
okay.
do. So birthing of a business is not too
It's
separate
not
of
too
yeah,
it's not too far
conversation.
off, yeah.
No, it's really not.
I was
Mm-mm.
joking with my mom the other day. I was telling her, I really feel like my business is a toddler right now, and we're going through some growing pains and tantrums, and we're just trying to figure out who we are and what we want to be when we grow up. I feel like,
100%.
but I feel like that's okay. And it's also inspiring to hear someone like you, where you're at now, obviously way past that, and developed to know that in any early stages of starting something new, there's always that, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Feeling like, how am I going to get my first client? Who are my clients? And then just, like true Disney magic main character energy style, your first couple clients were Disney and Nickelodeon. What the heck? How did you do that?
Oh my gosh, that so much was, I would say a lot of it was luck, and
Yeah.
also just me being the tenacious person that I am. I mean, when I was working at Disney, there was this fearlessness
Mm.
with everyone that I worked with. It was like, don't be afraid to go after this big client. There's so much that you have to offer. And so I took that same um, energy. And really, when I started Envision, that was my big go. So I had a friend that I'd done business with before at Nickelodeon, and I called her up and said, "Hey, I'm coming into New York. I'd love to tell you a little bit about my business." And she said yes. So I booked this lunch. I made this whole PowerPoint presentation. I just had my daughter, so I got on a plane with my breast pump, and I
Stop.
flew. Now I it was so funny. I mean, I flew there, and I only wanted to stay the day because I had to get home to my kid.
Oh my goodness.
And I took her to lunch, and I had this whole big, I remember being very dramatic, and, I have lower overhead, and my work ethic, and I'm gonna do a great job. And at the end of lunch, she just looked at me and she goes, "Why'd you get on a plane? Of course I'd give you the business." And
Stop.
I left and I cried the whole way home and was like, "I got my first client, I got my first paycheck." And that's
Oh.
really how the whole thing started. Was I just went after someone that knew the type of work I did, and knew the
Mm,
type of work, knew how hard I worked, and that
mm.
I wouldn't let her down, and I would find a way to succeed. And yeah, so my first client was was Nickelodeon. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, the first partnership we put together was with McDonald's.
Stop it.
So it was
Really?
this huge deal. Yeah, we ended up aligning Nickelodeon and McDonald's in the Nickelodeon magazine, and we created this whole digital asset, and it was a blast. It was so cool. That was the very first, and then I just started calling all my friends at Disney, and Disney ended up being one of our initial clients, where we would fulfill sweepstakes partners for them on the different Disney.com channels.
Wow. I Listen, that means, that's so important, because it means that even if you have not yet started your business, or wherever you are at in your career, it is so important to network and really form strong bonds with people wherever you're at right now, because you truly don't know what your next step or is going to be. And I don't know what would have happened had you not, had some of that like connection there too. I think it's always, people always think, oh, when I get clients, I have to find someone I've never talked to before, or it's like this mystical being of an out there person, right? But it seems like from your experience, a lot of it's like starting with who you know and some of your initial connections, and then it kind of like doubled down and grew out from there. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what
It
I'm
is. I think a lot of it's also you just have to be, I mean, courageous enough to take that initial step. And I will say
mm,
this, the first person I reached out to said no. The second person I reached out to said that they didn't have time to meet with me. And that was someone that I knew really well. And
mm,
Kristen at Nickelodeon was probably one of the third or fourth phone calls that I made asking for a meeting. And, so it sounds super easy and like it happened really fast, and it didn't. It was a lot of knocking on doors and making sure that I felt prepared and comfortable and that I could really win that business.
how do you make yourself comfortable with hearing no? Because I'm sure you hear no a lot and you push through that anyways and figure out a yes somewhere.
It's funny. I think of this just in sales as general. I think
Yeah.
of myself like, Rita, do you play video games at all? Like, have you ever played
Oh,
video
yes.
games?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a gamer. Like, I love video games and I love the challenge of video games. And if you
Yes.
think of video games, like, how many times do you fail before you get to the next level, right?
Mm,
And so I really think of that in terms of sales as well. If you can sort of in your mind gamify the sales process, no is not a big deal, right? Because you're going to have to hear no and fail and fail and fail until you can get to that next level, right? And
wow.
if you stick with it long enough and you're willing to tweak and figure out what your pitch is going to be and whether or not what you're offering is what they need, or asking the right questions is probably the number one thing, right? Asking what they need, what their budget is, what their timing is. You can, tweak your offer to make sure and make sure that you can do it.
Right.
You're going to get to that next level, and then you're going to get to the next level, and then you get to the next level. So I really do associate a lot of sales with gaming.
Yes. No, I love that. I think about gamification of things all the time, actually, even for some of my to-do lists. If I'm having a hard time, I learned this from Angela. Shout out Angela if you're watching or listening later. If I'm having a hard time picking a task to do for the day, I'll write down a list like 1 through 10. And then she's like, she showed me this article where you could like roll a little dice or whatever, and then like let the dice pick like what the task is. So then you like don't have to overthink about it or
Oh,
whatever.
I love this.
So fun, right? Because then it's just
Yes,
like you don't overthink. Because I tend to overthink how long something's going to take, and then I do it, and it takes like 20 minutes, and I'm like,
I
why did I
know.
do that?
And most tasks, if you sit down and do it, don't take as long as you think they're going to take, or at
Right.
least you can break it down into steps
Right.
so that you're actually doing the whole, but you have it in little steps and you can knock it out. I
Right.
love that rolling of the dice. That's so fun.
Well,
I've actually thought about creating a sales app that's gamified. And I'm sure there are some that are
ooh,
out there, but making it where you level up when you send emails or calls or,
you get like
LinkedIn,
points and
you
stuff.
get points.
Yeah.
And then you get like, you can change your outfit or avatar, or you
Yes.
become the stronger avatar. I don't know. I think that would be so fun. I've been thinking about that a lot because I think it would help a lot of people. Sales has such a negative connotation attached to it, and it's
Right.
really fun if you can
Yes.
get through the no, right?
Yes. So for, I'm just on this topic, it's really interesting to me. I'm sure part of getting the yes is a nice offer, like a relevant offer, one that actually for a partnership actually makes sense for both people. So for someone listening to what we're talking about now and going, okay, but I don't get it. What is Envision Promotions? What are these vague partnerships? Like what are these companies doing with each other? Like, can you break it down just a little bit more and explain, what that is, and then how your offer is like really tailored down to make those yeses more likely?
Absolutely. So I like to joke that Envision Promotions is like a dating service for large corporations, because really what we're trying to do is bring align two brands that complement one another,
Mhm.
so that they both can grow and they both win. So
Mm.
true partnerships we define as solving real problems, but both partners get to benefit from it, and we're creating magical moments for their consumer. The truth of the matter is we're actually a dating service for large corporations consumers, right?
Mm.
Because what we have to do in our data process is really articulate who that target demographic is, their values, household income, where they shop, where they spend their time, where they spend their money, so that when we're bringing a partner, the partnership really aligns and it makes that sort of magic happen and both partners can grow. But some examples, oh my gosh, there's a ton of them. We get game companies on cereal boxes. We do all different kinds of retail partnerships, events. We help companies launch product. We help companies launch entertainment, movies and music and video games. We do all kinds of fun stuff, but really it's through partnerships to help both companies grow.
I love that. On a smaller scale, for someone who's just starting out their business or maybe a startup, maybe, not necessarily like a small business owner, like what are some lower entry level ways that they could use some of the strategies for what you do for these bigger companies, but like for themselves? Like, let's pretend that like I have a podcast software website or whatever, right?
Yep.
What are some where does your brain go when I say that?
I'm so glad you say this, because I think partnerships is probably one of the fastest way to have serious impact on your organization, even as a solopreneur.
Mhm.
And when you think of a partnership, I think what you want to do immediately is figure out who your target demographic is, who's listening to your podcast, who are you trying to get listened to your podcast, because it might be
Mhm.
different from who's listening to your podcast. And once you have an understanding of who that consumer is, start asking your consumer, what are you eating, drinking, where are you getting your other technology, what games are you playing? And if it's something that really aligns with who your brand is and what you're trying to accomplish, you just call up that company and have a conversation. You can create a webcast, you could do co-branded messaging on Instagram, you could create a special offer where both companies could give something for free if they join the database. Like, there's, it really depends on what you're trying to do as an organization. Most small businesses are just trying to drive sales.
Right.
So if you're just trying to drive sales, create a coupon that the other partner can promote.
Mm.
We have found that partnerships are one of the best ways to engage new clients and establish that trust. So, Rita, if you tell your best friend that your new lip gloss is this brand, the likelihood of your best friend going out and buying that lip gloss is huge. If you
Right.
see an advertisement for that lip gloss, you're like, whatever, I have my favorite.
Yeah.
It's that recommendation
Mm.
through the partnership that's really establishing that credibility and going to drive that sale. Does that
That
answer your question? Did I
it
help?
absolutely does, and it reaffirms my at least my philosophy on why I think podcasting is an impactful way as a lower lift way to do some of what you're talking about, like collaborating, talking to somebody. Really, it's creating win-win scenarios, right? Is
Hmm.
that right?
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
I would love to hear about kind of one case study or maybe a success story of a campaign that you worked on that really stands out to you and why you think it was successful to keep this little example train going.
Oh, I love that. So it's really funny when I think of most successful, in my mind, I think of my favorites. And when I think of my favorites, it's usually based on the execution.
Okay.
So we do on pack frequently with, when I say on pack and I say consumer goods products, you're thinking of like cereal and juice boxes and things you buy at the grocery store or at Walmart and Target.
Mhm.
So those are really fun because you have a physical space that you can use to offer content or create something magical or call to action for purchasing a product. But
Mhm.
my favorites are probably um, working with retailers. We've worked with Gap and Stride Rite and Pinkberry, frozen
Ooh.
yogurts, and Hyatt hotels. And I think the reason that those are my favorite is because there's so much that you can do, right?
Yes.
We've created gameplay on the floors for kids to interact with. You have sampling opportunities. You can get gifts. it's so much more of like a platform that you can paint for like these
Mhm.
really cool partnerships and events. So one example, one of my favorites, and this answers your question about success, which is most of our clients come to us with a specific problem.
Okay.
And Stride Right is one of our clients that came to us with a problem where they had this amazing line of washable shoes, and they kept advertising the washable shoes, but they couldn't get moms to think about taking the shoes and throwing them in the wash machine with the
Okay.
clothes. So we brainstormed all these ideas, and we came up, why aren't we working with a laundry detergent, and why aren't we working with a washing machine? And so
Mm.
we secured Tide as the partner, but we wanted to try it on for size. We wanted to make sure that it resonated with the consumer and that both companies received a lift. So the very first year we put the two together, we did a big sweepstakes. Tide promoted it to their audience, Stride Right promoted it to their audience, which is key in a partnership. Everyone has to be generous, right?
Mhm.
So we put this whole sweepstakes together, and the response, the registration went through the roof. We gave away what we called a kid time supply of shoes. So if your child was 5 years old, we would fit them until they were a teenager, which is the life cycle of Stride Right shoes.
Wow.
And we gave away a year supply of Tide products, and we gave away a washer and dryer, and it was this top of the line washer and dryer. And the registration was incredible. The sampling that we took from that was really powerful. So the next year we did a full scale partnership, which included we offered Tide Pods as samples for everyone that purchased shoes in the Stride Right store. We did a campaign where we actually decorated one of the walls, and it looked like the shelf was sitting on top of a washer machine.
Oh,
And
that's
we
so
had Tide
cool.
product, and then we had all the washable shoes, and it reminded mom to take the shoe and throw it in. Then we had a placement where the shoe was actually on the Tide product. So when you were pouring your Tide products into the machine, you're looking at the box, and it actually had the shoe to remind you to throw the shoe in. And then it exploded into like media, and we had all these game elements. It was, so that's an example of how we tend to grow our partnerships. Also, just the sales drivers from that, there was, couponing and all these promotions that went around it. So we just had an incredible success for both partners in that promotion. Those are the kinds of partnerships that we like to secure and put together and grow.
Well, a couple things come to mind from that really awesome example and success story. One is the idea of just being present and places that you may not initially think that the consumer is present. Just like those impressions, right? And it's just like I love the psychology of it. It really is psychological because you're like, "Oh, you see it there and then you see it somewhere else and then you're like, "Oh, I you're creating this an association and really doubling down on association that somebody didn't necessarily have before with a couple products. And then guess what? Also the consumer wins too because they have the chance to win something for free. So it's such an easy your like deal to make because you're not saying, hey, give me like $20 million and that's it. Good luck. Maybe we'll see results. Maybe we won't. You're saying, all right, give me X amount of dollars and look at the email list that you're going to have. Look at you can use that data to have more targeted ads for whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's digital or in IRL or whatever, right? So
Yep.
I love it. Do you use AI with some of this stuff? How does that play into any of this? I'm just curious.
Yes. So with the data component of it, when we started, oftentimes we realized that our clients didn't always genuinely know who their target demographic was,
Right.
or what their values were, or so we started incorporating all different kinds of data elements. We include, social listening to find out what's meaningful to the particular consumer. We do market research, Google Analytics, all the things that you can think of in terms of like
Mm,
really drilling down and understanding who their consumer is, because then we can partner them with a very like-minded consumer and like-minded brand. With AI, it's really more interesting. We use AI in a lot of different ways. Content, I think is unbelievable in terms of what AI can crank out and like give you as a starting point for different
right.
themes and different elements. Some of the other ways that we use AI is we're always looking for cutting edge new partnerships, right? The newest, brands that are launching, and it's really easy to get lost in the mire of just only focusing on those big brands that everybody knows, because a lot of the bigger brands want those smaller niche cool companies that are just starting up. And AI, if we start saying, who are the brands and who aligns with these target demographics, it often supports our initiatives and what we're trying to accomplish. But I will say AI is tricky. I was actually on another podcast recently where it was talking all about AI,
Yeah.
and the person that was doing the podcast used my likeness through AI to create the image to promote the podcast. And I got
Oh,
that image and was like, no, you
no,
can't,
you
you
can't
can't
do
use this.
that. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I mean, I know it's not technically, but like that feels wrong.
Oh my gosh, it was the first time where I was like, "Oh, I see now why there's so many people that are, like, nervous about AI." And you
Yeah.
hear about all these, like, deep fakes and
Yeah.
craziness going on, but that was the first time where it was turned on me, and I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like,
And you were like,
"I'm really uncomfortable with
oh,
this."
so that's why this is a little sketch to some people.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, but, all in all, I think, data and AI play a really positive role, in what we do and how we use it.
Well, I don't want to gloss over that because there are people who might think about the partnership side of things and go, oh, cute, we're doing fun events and slapping our face on different products and whatever. Like, that's going to work, whatever, right? Like, I don't know. Some people just don't really think that deep into it. But the data side is important, like understanding who your customer is and why you're doing what you're doing. Those pieces can't happen after the fact. They really have to happen before, and I'm
Yes.
sure at least maybe from what I understand from Disney, like they kind of they know that about their customers. They know what we like, what we don't like, where we're going, where we're not going. How did you learn or maybe use some of that into what you're doing with your business today? Did you have a moment where you sat down and you're like, okay, who are my who am I gonna like who's my ideal customer? Like how did you go through that process?
That is a great question, because we're constantly looking at who our target demographic is in terms of from a sales standpoint, right?
Yeah.
We know that the majority of the decision makers that are hiring Envision are in a marketing capacity. If it's a
Mhm.
Fortune 500 company, it could be someone like a director of marketing. Typically, it's around a vice president of marketing or brand. If it's a smaller organization or a newer brand, sometimes we're working with the CEO.
Right.
But the truth is, it's always people that are managing the budgets that are looking for that exposure and trying to drive sales.
Mm.
So those are who our target demographic is. But to answer your question, um, learning from Disney how they really understand their consumer to drive excitement and engagement. I mean, they have probably not only the largest footprint around who they talk to, but
Right.
also like the brand love, and they're so protective. I remember when I worked at Disney, and we were putting these programs together, we weren't even allowed to use like the Mickey Mouse ears or
Yeah.
the Disney D if it wasn't the right brand fit.
Wow.
We weren't even allowed to talk about it. Like and I at first I was always sort of frustrated. I'm like, why can't we use these different? They're
Like,
amazing and
yeah,
highly
these awesome.
recognizable. And they
Yeah.
were like, nope, we are super protective of that
Mhm.
brand, and they have to be, right? They understand the value of just being able to use the Disney D.
Mm.
If you're doing a partnership and you're tying it in, you have to be generous and fit that same target demographic. Otherwise, it's not worth it to them, or more importantly, like risk um, tampering with the brand. Does that make sense?
It does, because I think obviously, I think about what Disney today. I mean, how many partnerships do they have now? They got Hulu, they got Marvel, they got Star Wars, they got blah 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 blah. They got all the things, right? And I'm
Hmm.
sure when you want to partner with somebody, you're putting your own brand on the line, and you have to. It's like a marriage, you go through the matchmaking process. Like you're taking somebody else's last name, and you're like, do I want that reputation? Is that going to be a good reputation? There's like a little weird association there. You just for the metaphor that we were talking about earlier, right? So
Yep.
that protectiveness is something to really be it's it could be tricky while you're there, but I think it's a lesson to learn for everyone else's brands. Like, how quick are we to partner with someone else? Like, what are we really aligned? Like, what that thought process is for understanding what are the alignment is not just for the short term, for the long term, because you don't know what you partner on today, how it could impact your brand later, especially modern times. Like, I feel like certain brands get canceled sometimes, like this cancel culture of like, whatever, right? So what I'm trying to say is, from how you started back then and stuff that you've learned now, what are some of the ways that the business has changed and how you're keeping up with the trends and stuff and keeping that mind, and has that mindset changed from when you started different ventures?
I know. That's a great question. I think keeping up with trends is so important.
Mhm.
But to go back a little bit, I think when we speak about putting together two different partners, it is very much like a marriage. As a matter of fact,
Right.
Rita, it's really funny. We get asked a lot about when we talk about partnerships, they associate partnerships with either networking, like how do you network in order to find your future job or best friends or whatever. And the other one is marriage. Like we
Yes.
always get that. Are you dating service? Or
Yes.
I'm like, no, we don't. But it's the same rules apply, right?
Right.
And with small businesses, we often tell them to do a two brain check, right? So you're checking all the boxes, meaning, does it fit your target consumer? Does your brand align? Does this make sense? Are you going to drive revenue? Are you going to achieve your goals? Whatever it might be. And then we do the gut check. And the gut
Mm.
check is, does this feel right to your brand? Is there a red flag that you can't seem to identify with why you're dragging your feet about making that partnership? And if ever there's a problem with your gut, we always advise you to listen to it, especially small businesses, because there's a reason why you're maybe not pulling the trigger on a partnership or a relationship or with a friend or with a boyfriend, right?
Yes.
You have to trust your gut. And there's a reason for it. You know, there's some kind of
You get
intuition
that
that's pointing to
feeling.
that. Hmm.
So it's almost like if you're procrastinating on creating a proposal, I would never. But if you're procrastinating on creating a certain proposal or an RFP or whatever it is for your for the brand that you have, yeah, maybe there's a reason why you're thinking it, you're holding it up. It's that feeling of like, technically this is right, but is this right emotionally? Something that I
Yes.
really love about the Disney brand is there's a lot of emotion tied into some of the values and the way that they run business, at least on the surface level, right? So, um, you know, I would love to hear, and I know I'm like going off on a squirrel moment here, but I think it's important when we talk about relationships that we talk about values. We talk about partnerships that are rooted in not just the business outcomes, but also the brand alignment, the values that come into that. So, is that something you consider, and what are yours?
Really good question. So we have our core values cut out for Envision Promotion, and they are trust, tenacity, fearlessness, generosity, and positivity. And
Mm,
those, if you think about, I mean, they probably align with a lot of Disney-esque
right.
type of culture, right?
Yeah.
But I think values is probably one of the most important in terms of any kind of partnership, be it a
Uh-huh.
relationship or friends or networking, especially in business.
Right.
Um, you know, when you go into a partnership with another company, you are going into a partnership with another company. And regardless of how small it is, even if you're co-branding on, your social platforms or you're sending out a coupon in somebody else's email, um, it is really important that message is cultivated and created for those same values that are aligning with both partners, right? So if the
Mhm.
value alignment isn't there, um, you have to ask yourself if it's a really valid partnership, if that
Right.
makes sense. And to answer your question, values are hugely a part of every decision that we make in terms of partnerships.
So, I mean, did you just wake up one day and go, "My core values are trust, fearlessness, generosity." I know it.
No, no, are you kidding? I do know that personally, mine's positivity. Every disc assessment I take, I'm like off the charts of positivity.
Yeah.
You probably are too, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but I think like tenacity and fearlessness are probably some of my personal core values. But really, we work together as a team and our organization to come up with our core values because we wanted it to be something that was for the organization and not,
Mm.
personally.
Right.
I think that, and it's not an easy thing. It's not, you just don't write them down. It has to be something that's embedded in who you are as an organization. And you have to be able to make sure that that thread is consistent across everything you do. So when we bring on a client, we want to make sure it resonates with our core values. They feel like they're being heard. They know that they can trust us to do the best work possible. They know that we're going to go after some of the coolest partners on the planet that fit their goals and their target audience. So we would make sure that it's consistent in everything that we do, how we communicate with them, even our contracts and our weekly touch base calls. We want to make sure that those core values are implemented in every step of the process.
Yeah, I mean that's important to note that, you just mentioning that you ask your team too, because I feel like there are some people out there that some brands or whoever, they're like, these are our values, and everyone else is like, not to us. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Who came up with that? That's not how I feel. And that's kind of why I accidentally witch cackled at that earlier because it's like that. It's that like the meme of like those posters on the wall where it's like happy life, happy, or like, just breathe or whatever, like those like cheesy, like random sayings that like a soulless office would put up, right? And that's why it's so important to have on the flip side, the opposite of that, like an actual conversation with the team, living and breathing, like not just day to day internally, but with the partners too. Like, is that really guiding what we're doing? And I do think, that's something that I'm sure Disney considers too as well. But less about them. Let's dive more about you. Okay, more about you. So I'm sure that there's been some challenges along the way securing some of these Fortune 500 bougie partnerships. Okay, like it's a lot. It's not as easy as it looks. What are some challenges that you've encountered, and how
Oh
did you
my gosh.
overcome them?
So, it's funny that we're going in this conversation about values and everyone being on the same page and our organization working together to come up with our core values as an organization. I
Yes.
think one of the interesting obstacles we tend to discover early on in our relationships with our clients is when we talk about partnerships and we use data. We go through the process of figuring out the strategy for partnerships and what partners are going to actually help the KPIs and hit the goals within the organization. But if
Mm,
we sit down with a team of people all in the same organization, all in the same like job type, mostly it's marketing people and business development people, and before we even get started, if we ask all of them to write on a piece of paper who they think the best partner would be for their organization, they would, most of them would write down different companies,
yeah, yeah.
right? So I think one of the things we did early on was we started making sure as we go through our immersion process, which is that data analytics and really
Hmm.
social listening, is getting everyone on the same page. Because if we're working together as a team, um, everyone's working for the same goals and on the same goals, then competing sort of against each other. One's kind of upset that we didn't do this one retailer, and another one's upset we didn't go with the cereal brand.
You can't
Um,
please everyone.
oh, you're
Yeah.
never going to be able to please everyone, but you can get everyone on the same page. So we're
Okay.
all working together, right?
Okay.
And that's the goal. So I think that's probably one of the things that I can think of in terms of obstacles. And we just created a methodology and a process that helps us figure that out so it's easier as we go through that process. And another thing that we do is initially we would act as the agency that project manages both.
Okay.
And what we do now is we make sure that all of the decision makers from both organizations are together on the same page. So we bring everyone in for these not just introductory meetings, but during the brainstorming session and as we're negotiating contracts, because really we found that's when the magic happens.
Mm,
A corporation like, Disney and a partner that we're trying to secure, if you put them in the same room, like sparks start to fly,
yeah.
right? And instead of like a coupon for $1 off, it becomes like this really profound experience. We end up making an event out of it, right? Um, and then the marketing materials sort of come out of that very organically. Everything sort of flows together. So I think that's another thing that we learned as an organization is just to be super transparent, let everyone have a voice in the situation, being really honest about expectations, how we're going to track it, all those things were problems in the beginning. And then we started, using processes in order to solve those problems.
How do you, when you've gotten everyone on the same page and then we're brainstorming, we're vibing, we got an event, we do the event or whatever initiative it is, it goes great. How do you keep those relationships? How do you maintain them and keep people coming back? Because I think a lot of folks in that industry could maybe do like one big time project, maybe when they're just starting out, and then it goes well, and then bye bye, you never hear from that client again. Like, what are
Oh
some
my
things that
gosh.
you do to keep it going?
Okay, so that is the key. I think that's the key to growth with most organizations. So I will tell you a story, which is when
Yes.
we started at Nickelodeon, and one of our first clients, like I told you before, her name was Kristen. Kristen wasn't at Nickelodeon very long. She went to a company called Cranium Games, and she took us with her. We worked really hard. We made her look very good in the organization. She was wonderful to work with. We did not want to lose her. And
Mhm.
so when she went to Cranium Games, she brought us along as an agency. If you look at Envision's client list, the majority of our clients have been with us for a really long period of time. They might not have been in the same organization, but they
Right,
take us with them when they leave, which I think is just it says a lot about my team and how we work. That
right.
we do a really good job if they're taking us from one place to the next. So that's one thing is creating that really long term relationship and taking really good care of your clients. Um, and then I would also say, one piece I think of advice I would give is just be really thoughtful to your clients, like listen to them, and we're always trying to make introductions to make their lives easier. So we have a lot of our own strategic partners where if they need help in a certain area, we can make introductions and make sure that they're getting that business that helps them make them look good. Um, but yeah, I think one of the tricks that we learned as we were growing, and I think this will really help your audience, is when you do get that business, you're leveled up and you're starting to work with that organization. We have made it a priority now to learn as many people as we can within that organization because the turnover now is pretty consistent.
Right.
Most people don't stay in their job for a long time. Most people are climbing, and if they're going to climb, they're going to climb internally in an organization or they're going to quit their way up. If they quit their way up, we want them to take us with them, and if they're climbing, we want to make sure we know everyone along the way so that we can keep doing business in that same organization. So I think that's
That's a
an
very,
important lesson to learn.
very important, right? Because you might hyper focus on building a certain relationship and then you never know in this economic climate what, good or bad, where that person will be, and then that's it. You just lost an opportunity to grow or to travel together on a different
Yeah, if they
adventure.
take a job in an organization we can't work with, we're not working with that organization or the new client. So I
Yes.
think those relationships are probably the biggest key to our success.
So, I could talk to you for, like, 4 hours, but I have to, like, find a way to get to get to a slowing down and then maybe a wrapping up at some point, but, there is something that I really admire about you. I've only talked to you a couple of times, but I get the sense of excitement for what you do, passion for what you do, care for what you do, and, I feel like, being a leader is it's not easy. It's like, being a mama for your business. Things happen, things go wrong, and or sometimes things go great, and you have to celebrate them. And so, what leadership lessons or qualities have you learned along the way that you feel like are really essential for running your a marketing agency or your business or just in general?
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't even know where to start. I've learned so much. I think I learn the best leadership lessons from other leaders.
Mm,
Um, like I said before, when I worked at Disney, I some of my favorite people work there, and I still rely and lean on them for their expertise. One of the leadership tricks that I'm really trying to master, and I have not mastered yet, is listening.
mm,
It's really listening to what people are telling you, both from the client side, your employees, your friends, right, your loved ones, your kids. It is
yes.
really hard for me sometimes to really slow down and listen. And so I've been practicing that I am not an expert yet, but I'm still working on it. I think that's probably why I'm talking about it so much right now, is it's
Yes.
something that I'm constantly trying to train myself to do. But I will say, I try really hard, which I think is the most important part. Trying to grow and be a better leader is something that's really important to me. Helping others is really important to me, and I think that's part of Envision success, is that we genuinely want everyone to grow and rise together. So hopefully that answers your
It
question.
does.
But
It does because I think, being vulnerable and honest about there's still things that you acknowledge that you want to improve and grow on. I think that in it of itself is a great quality for a leader, someone who's willing to accept that you don't know everything. Every day you have an opportunity to grow and learn and try something new and be hopefully better that day than the day before. I'm on my own leadership journey. I, went from working for somebody else to having this business. And let me tell you, that's a whole different way of thinking and being. It really is a mindset. So speaking with awesome people like you really helps me to not only feel inspired by like where you've been, but also reaffirm that where you're going, like you always have time to grow. It's never too late to really just feel like you're becoming who you are as a leader. I think a lot of people, when they listen to business podcasts or whatever podcasts, they're in this mindset of like, man, I suck. I just suck at being a leader. I suck at this business. And like maybe it's not meant for me, like day one, they feel like they have to be the perfect business owner, perfect leader, perfect whatever. And I think it's really reaffirming to hear someone like you who's obviously killing it, doing amazing things, still having those moments of being like, hey, like I don't know about this yet. And that's okay. And that's okay. And that's awesome. And we need that. I think it's just it makes me so happy and I could geek out about it forever. But, looking back as well too, what are some moments that you're most proud of, or a thing that you've accomplished in the and not just in your business, but for yeah, your business has helped you achieve for your life that you're like, wow, I'm so glad I was able to do that and that it happened.
oh my gosh, I honestly think that, one, I'm really grateful that when I did start Envision, when I started Envision, I'm grateful I listened to my fabulous friends and coworkers and business friends. But I think the biggest success story is really being able to be the best mom I could be
Hmm.
while uh, working, which I love to work. I love it. I will say this to all those moms out there, that I genuinely believe I'm a better parent because I work. And I think that's something that we struggle with as women, trying to balance. There's no such thing as balance, right? It's just finding what works for you in the best way that you can.
Yes.
But I really encourage women who want to work to find a way to do it, because it fulfills me in such a different way, and I genuinely believe it makes me a better parent to my children.
That's so profound. It is inspiring. I think about my own mom who wasn't able to do both. She wanted to do both, couldn't, and was an amazing stay-at-home mom. But I have so much respect for the women who do it. And I'm don't have kids yet, but I'm low key terrified of being able to find that imaginary balance that doesn't exist. So gosh, anyone out there like you that's able to find a way to do both, it's um it's good. It's good for my future brain, future self. It makes me feel like maybe I can do it. Maybe I could do it one
100%. If I
day.
can do it, anyone can do
I
it.
can do it, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's so cool. So, we'll round out and kind of close out here with a couple of questions. And one of them I want to know is, we talked a lot about the fluffy side of the happy side of business. We're passionate, we're excited, we're doing great things, we're kicking ass, doing awesome things. Sorry, mom, I didn't mean to cuss. She's listening. But anyways, what keeps you inspired and motivated to do the thing when you don't feel like doing the thing? Because
Oh my
I
gosh.
gotta know, because it's not all sunshines and butterflies and zippity doo dah every day.
No,
there's
it is not.
there's some tough times. So how do you How do you push through that?
I think if you genuinely, for one, I think goals. Like I
Okay.
am a huge goal person. And it's not even, this is going to sound super egotistical, and I'm not trying for it to be super egotistical, but I've had some huge goals that I've set for myself, and I've accomplished almost all of them.
Wow.
And um, I've found that it's not hitting the goal; it's in the pursuit of the goal that brings you genuine happiness. At least for me, right? It's so if I can keep establishing more and more goals, and I have something to strive for, that really motivates me. How do I keep motivated? I have a lot of accountability partners. I am like you. I have my checklists. I roll my dice and I
Yeah.
try and knock those things out. I make sure that there are certain things that I want to accomplish every day, and I make sure that those are my priorities to accomplish. I should say most days. I mean, come on, we've all
Yeah.
had the bad days, but then give yourself the grace where on those bad days. I mean, there are days where I'm like, not today. And if I'm in a lousy mood, I will not call that person and try and pitch or negotiate. It's You have to know when to take a break.
I think that's important. I think some people might push through and be like, maybe they won't be able to tell, but people can tell. People can see through the energy that you have when you're trying to work with them. So
Yes,
what
yes.
what final thoughts or messages, maybe something I didn't even ask you today that you wish I would have asked you, do you have about partnerships in general and just the strategy of using it for a brand's marketing?
So I think what I would want everyone to take away from this particular conversation is just don't be afraid to partner.
Mm,
If you really want to grow your company, then have the belief in yourself and the trust in yourself that a true partnership is out there for you, because there is nothing that works faster than some kind of true partnership. You can grow your audience, you can grow your database, and it's the same with dating, networking, putting yourself out there in order for these things to happen. I think putting yourself out there is going to help you grow.
yes, I agree. All right, everyone. If you are feeling inspired, motivated, maybe you need a partnership. Maybe you're listening to this and going, heck, I don't even know anything about my audience. I need someone to go in and get nitty gritty, do some research, figure out what we're trying to do. How do they contact you, Bridget? How do they
Oh,
do
I'm easy to find. I'm Bridget Murphy on LinkedIn. Our website is Envision P. And if you go to Envision P, there's contact us. You can reach out to us in multiple different ways.
Okay, before I go, I have to ask you one last surprise question because I try to ask everybody this. My secret side quest, we talked about video games. My secret side quest I have for this podcast is trying to see the Cinderella suite at the top of Magic Kingdom Castle. Do you know? Do you have the key? Do you know how I could get up there? Do you know how we could make that happen?
I think you could do it.
You
I
think I
think you
could
could,
do
without
it?
hesitation. You are already on your way. You're like moments away, wearing the dress and the shoes and the whole nine
Listen,
yards.
Listen, I just for anyone listening, every time I'm like, so there's only talking about partnerships. There's got to be one person out there. I'm not trying to stay in it. Okay, I know that's extra. I just need to go there. And I want to do a little vlog type of thing and be like, hey, what's up? This is a suite. I just want to see it. So
You know what? You should just make the call and talk about your podcast.
you think
I'm
I
not,
should just
I'm
call?
totally, don't be fearless, man. Why wouldn't you?
Really?
And you could promote it. You could talk about it.
Yeah.
You would have that whole magical moment. Oh my gosh, you're the
Yes.
perfect person to talk about that suite.
I
Do
listen.
it. Do
Okay,
it.
thank you. All right,
Yes.
man, hire Bridget as your hype person. I love it. Okay. All right,
No,
everyone.
you'd be amazing. You're amazing. I think you should totally do that.
That's so awesome. Everyone, thanks for listening to Bippity Boppity Business. All right, say that 7 times if you're having a bad day and you'll laugh at yourself and it'll make you feel better. If you are wanting to connect with Bridget, do so. And then we'll catch you on the next time. We really appreciate you for joining us today. Thank you, everybody. Let's cue the outro. Do, 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 do. You've been listening to Bippity Boppity Business. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review in Apple or listen to us anywhere you prefer listening to your podcast. Until next time, have a magical day.